Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking time to watch my presentation. My name is Tiffany Armstrong, and today I wanted to share what I've learned about motivation throughout this course and how it has changed the way I think about my personal life, my family, and my work as a student engagement coach. Before taking this class, I thought motivation was pretty simple. I believe that if someone really wanted to accomplish something, they would work hard and eventually achieve that goal. But as I moved through this course, I realized motivation is much more complex than just that. It's influenced by our goals, our beliefs about ourselves, our emotions, our relationships, and even the way we explain our successes and failures. For my two motivational acts, I chose experiences that were meaningful to me personally. The first involved my son in developing a consistent study routine, and the second focused on strengthening my marriage by intentionally planning date nights with my husband over a 2 week period. Although these experiences were very different, they both taught me important lessons about motivation that I can apply in my personal life and every day in my role as a student engagement coach. So, one of the biggest things I learned this semester is that motivation affects almost everything we do. It influences how we approach challenges, how we respond when things don't go as planned, and whether we continue working towards our goals or decide to just give up. As educators, we often hear people say that students they aren't just motivated anymore. Before this course, I probably would have agreed that it seems like a lot of students aren't motivated to do anything. But now I realize the issue usually isn't that the students don't care. It's more so they don't believe they can be successful. They don't see the value in what they're doing, what they're learning, or they haven't experienced enough success to build confidence. That realization really changed my perspective. Instead of asking, why won't this student try? I now ask, what's getting in the way of this student's motivation? Sometimes it's fear of failure. Sometimes it's frustration. Sometimes it's lack of confidence or just lack of support. In my position as a student engagement coach, those questions will help me better understand my students and find ways to support them instead of simply expecting them to be more motivated on their own. So for this project, I completed two motivation acts that focus on people who are very important to me. The first motivation act centered on helping my son develop a more consistent study routine. He started dual enrollment. He is a rising junior in high school. So he started dual enrollment over this summer and it terrified me. So like other students, he occasionally waits until the very last minute to study or becomes frustrated when something doesn't come easily. My goal wasn't just to improve his grades, but I also wanted to help him build habits that would make him a more confident and independent learner. My second motivation act focused on my relationship with my husband. Like many couples, life gets us busy with work, our family responsibilities. We have a son that plays travel basketball, and my husband coaches, a daughter in college, all of that good stuff, and just everyday commitments. We realized we weren't always making intentional time for one another, so we committed to planning 3 date nights over a 2 week period to reconnect and strengthen our relationship. These two experiences may seem unrelated at first, but they both showed me that motivation grows when people have meaningful goals, supportive relationships, and believe that their efforts can make a difference. So, as a parent, one thing I've learned is that building good habits doesn't happen overnight. My son is a very bright student, but like many other kids, studying isn't always something he looks forward to doing. Homework usually gets done, but preparing for quizzes and tests often happen at the very last minute with him. If he struggled with something, he sometimes became discouraged and he questions whether he's even good at the subject. Even though I know that he's very good at it, it's just his procrastination. I wanted to help him move away from that way of thinking. And instead of only reminding him to study before a test, we created a routine that fit into our daily schedule. Again, we're very busy. He does a college prep program at Georgia State, and he's also doing dual enrollment at another school. So it's a lot going on. But I wanted to get him used to doing that because the same issues arrived during the school year. So every evening, we set aside a time dedicated to reviewing what he had learned in class, finishing his homework, and also spent a little extra time preparing for upcoming quizzes and tests that he had. We also broke the larger assignments that he had into smaller pieces so that they felt less overwhelming. Rather than trying to study everything in one night, we focused on making steady progress each day and building upon what he learned the previous day. At first, it definitely required reminders and encouragement. He was very easy to forget that he actually needed to do something every single day. There were days when he would rather go and play basketball outside or scroll through his phone versus doing the work or sticking with the schedule that we put out. But after maybe the first week, I noticed something interesting. Studying started to become a part of his routine instead of something he dreaded. He became more organized, more confident, and less anxious about his schoolwork and homework. That experience reminded me that motivation often grows through consistency. Sometimes people don't feel motivated at first, but they become motivated after they start experiencing success. This experience connected really well to the attribution theory, which explains that the way people interpret success and failure affects their future motivation. As I learned more about this theory, I realized how important my words were when talking to my son about school. When he earned a good grade, instead of saying, "You're so smart," or "Good job," I started saying things like, "I can tell you studied hard for this," or "You really prepared and it paid off this time." That may sound like a small change, but it sent a completely different message. Instead of believing success came from something he either had or didn't have, he began seeing his effort and preparation and the consistency made the difference. The same thing happened when he didn't do as well as he hoped. Rather than saying, "I'm just not good at this," or "You need to try harder," we talked about what he could have done differently the next time. Maybe he just needed to spend a little more time reviewing his notes for this particular class, or ask his teacher for help, which he doesn't do that well, or just practice on the math problems a little longer. But those conversations help shift the focus away from blame and towards growth. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, he started seeing them as opportunities to improve. I think that's one of the biggest lessons from this theory. When people believe they have control over their success through effort and persistence, they're much more likely to stay motivated. Looking back on this motivation act, I realized I learned just as much as my son did. I learned that motivation isn't something we can force. We can't simply tell someone to try harder and expect lasting change. Instead, motivation develops when people experience success, receive encouragement, and begin believing that their actions make a difference. I also learned that routines are incredibly powerful, and we often think motivation comes first and habits follow, but many times it's actually the opposite. Once people develop positive routines and seeing progress, their motivation naturally increases. This experience also made me think about the students I work with every day. Many of them experience repeated academic struggles, and some have started believing they simply aren't capable of succeeding. As a student engagement coach, I want to help my students change those beliefs by showing them that growth is possible and success isn't about being perfect. It's about continuing to learn, putting forth consistent effort, and believing every step matters. My second act of motivation, I decided to focus on something just as important to me as my career, and that's my marriage. Like many couples, my husband and I have very busy schedules. Between work, our family responsibilities, household stuff, and just everything else that life throws at us, it became easy to put quality time together on the back burner. We realized that although we were spending time in the same house, we weren't always spending that time intentionally with each other. We wanted to change that. So, over a 2 week period, we committed to planning 3 intentional date nights. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, our goal wasn't to spend a lot of money or do anything extravagant. We simply wanted uninterrupted time together where we could reconnect, have meaningful conversations, laugh, and enjoy each other's company without the distractions of just life. Some of our dates were simple, like we went out to dinner, we walked through the neighborhood together just to spend time with each other. Um, and others were just time talking without our phones. That was the hard one because with every alert, I want to look and see what's going on because I'm nosy like that. But that's neither here nor there. No phones, no televisions, just us with each other. What mattered most wasn't the activity itself, it was making each other a priority. By the end of our 2 week time period, I noticed something really encouraging. We communicated more, we laughed more, and we felt more connected. It reminded me that healthy relationships don't happen by accident. Like any meaningful goal, they require intentional effort and consistency. This motivation act connected closely with the goal orientation theory because our goal was centered on growth rather than performance. Our goal wasn't about comparing ourselves to each other or trying to create the perfect marriage. Instead, we wanted to continue growing together and strengthening our relationship. This is what this theory describes as a mastery approach goal. Mastery goals focus on learning, improving, and becoming better over time instead of trying to outperform others or avoid failure. I think that's one of the reasons this Motivation Act was successful. We weren't chasing perfection. We were simply committed to investing time in something that mattered to both of us. And one thing that really stood out to me is that having a meaningful goal made it much easier to stay committed. Knowing that we were trying to reach these 3 date nights over the course of 2 weeks really motivated us to actually achieve that goal. Um, it became something that we both genuinely looked forward to. And since this, we have spent more intentional time together. When I look back on this experience, I realized it wasn't one big thing that made it successful. It was really the little things we did consistently that made the difference. The first thing was simply making our date nights a priority. Instead of saying we'll go out when we have time, we actually picked dates ahead of time and put them on our calendar. We said, okay, on Monday, we're going to do this. On Thursday, we're going to do this. And the next week on that following Friday we were going to do this. Once we scheduled it, we treated them like any other important commitment. That helped us learn that letting work and other responsibilities get in the way was something that we had to learn to avoid. We also kept each other accountable. We were each other's accountability partners through this whole trial that we ran. There were definitely days when we were tired and had a long list of other things that we needed to do. But because we had made that commitment together, we encouraged each other to stick with it. It wasn't about forcing ourselves to go out, it was about remembering why we set the goal in the first place. Another thing that really helped was putting our phones away. It's so easy to be physically present but mentally distracted by emails, phone calls, social media, text messages, whatever. During our date nights, we made a point to focus on each other. We talked, we laughed, we caught up on things that was going on outside of our household and just enjoyed being with each other without the distractions. Probably the biggest lesson that I learned was that we didn't have to plan elaborate or expensive dates. Some of our favorite moments were the simplest ones. We weren't trying to create a perfect date night. We were just being intentional about spending quality time together. That really made me think about motivation in general. Sometimes we think we have to make these huge changes to see results, but that's really usually not even the case. It's the small, consistent habits that make the biggest difference over time. Whether it's building a strong marriage, helping my son develop better study skills, or supporting students at my school, meaningful growth usually happens one intentional step at a time. When I compare these two motivation acts, I realize they have much more in common than I expected. Helping my son develop a study routine, focus on building confidence through consistent um, effort, and helping him understand that that success comes from things that he can control, like preparation and practice. Planning date nights with my husband focused on strengthening our relationship by setting a meaningful goal and intentionally making time for one another. Even though one experience involved parenting and the other involved my marriage, both required clear goals, consistent effort, encouragement, and accountability. Neither goal was accomplished overnight. Small, intentional actions repeated consistently made the biggest difference. Both experiences reminded me that motivation is strongest when people understand why a goal matters. Whether it's involved in study habits or strengthening a relationship, people are much more likely to stay motivated when the goal has a personal meaning to them. After completing these motivation acts and learning about different motivation theories throughout this course, there are four strategies that really stand out to me. The first strategy is helping people set clear and meaningful goals. Large goals can feel overwhelming, but breaking them into smaller steps makes success feel more attainable. The second strategy is encouraging a growth mindset. Instead of expecting perfection, we should remind ourselves and others that learning takes time. Mistakes aren't signs of failure, they're opportunities to improve. The third strategy is helping people focus on effort instead of ability. Whether I'm working with my son or my students at school, I want them to recognize that success comes from preparation, persistence, and using effective strategies rather than believing they're either naturally good or something they're not. And finally, I believe positive relationships are one of the greatest sources of motivation. People are much more willing to take risks, work through challenges and continue growing when they know someone believes in them. Another lesson I will carry with me is that motivation looks different for every student. There isn't a one size fits all approach because every student comes to school with different experiences, strengths, and challenges. Some students need help building confidence because they've struggled academically for years. Others need opportunities to challenge themselves because they aren't being pushed enough. English learners may become more motivated when lessons connect to their language or culture, while students with disability may need goals broken into smaller, more manageable steps. As educators, it's our responsibility to recognize these differences and provide support that meets students where they are. One thing that stood out to me throughout this course is that relationships matter. Students are much more willing to take academic risk, ask for help, and stay engaged when they know they have adults who genuinely care about them. In my position as a student engagement coach, I want every student to feel seen, heard, and supported. Sometimes the most powerful intervention isn't a program or strategy, it's simply building trust and showing students that someone believes in them. One of the biggest takeaways from this course is motivation isn't something I studied for this class. It's something I see every single day in my work and my life in general. Many of the students I support struggle with attendance, academics, or behavior, and just staying engaged in school, period. Because before taking this course, I might have looked at those challenges as isolated issues. But now I realize that motivation is often at the center of them. For example, when a student stops coming to school regularly, there is usually more going on than simply not wanting to come to school. Some students have experienced repeated failure and begin to believe they aren't capable of succeeding, while others don't see the connection between coming to school every day and achieving their future goals. Some have responsibilities outside of school or personal challenges that affect their motivation to engage in learning. This course has helped me to look beyond the behavior and ask deeper questions. Instead of asking why isn't this student trying, I now will ask what barriers are affecting this student's motivation. That shift is of thinking has made me more intentional in the will make me more intentional in the way that I support my students. I plan on spending more time helping students identify meaningful goals, recognizing their strengths, and celebrating their small successes, and understanding overall that growth takes time. Those conversations will have a much greater impact than simply telling the student that they need to do better. Reflecting on this course, I can honestly say that my understanding of motivation has completely changed. When I started, I believe motivation was mostly about self determination and self discipline. And now I understand that motivation is influenced by so many other different factors, including goals, emotions, beliefs, relationships, and past experiences. Helping my son develop a study routine showed me that consistent effort and positive habits can build confidence over time. I also learned how important it is to praise effort instead of the ability and help a child understand that success comes from preparation, persistence, and learning from your mistakes. Planning intentional date nights with my husband reminded me that meaningful goals require commitment and consistency. Strong relationships don't happen automatically. Just like learning, they grow when we intentionally invest time and effort into them. Both of these experiences reinforce something that I will remember long after this course is over, and that is meaningful change usually happens through small, consistent actions rather than one big moment. If I had to describe my motivational philosophy in one sentence, it would be this: I believe people are more motivated when they believe they can grow, when they feel supported, and when they have meaningful goals. That statement summarizes everything I've learned throughout this semester. While people believe they can improve, they're more willing to take on challenges and keep going even when things get difficult. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, they begin to see them as opportunities to learn and grow. Support also plays an important role, whether it comes from a parent, a spouse, a teacher, coach, mentor. Just knowing someone believes in you can make a tremendous difference. Sometimes people don't need someone to solve their problems. They just need the encouragement, accountability, and someone to remind them that they are capable. And finally, meaningful goals give us purpose. Whether I was helping my son build his study habits or working on strengthening my relationship with my husband, those goals mattered because they were both connected to something bigger than completing an assignment. They reflected the kind of parent, wife, and educator I want to be. As I continue my career, I hope to create the same environment for my students by helping them believe in themselves, supporting them through challenges, and encouraging them to set goals that truly matter to them. As I wrap up my presentation, I hope one message stands out above everything else. Motivation isn't about simply telling people to work harder. It's about helping them believe they can succeed, giving them meaningful goals to work towards, and providing the encouragement they need to keep going when challenges arise. Through my two motivational acts, I experienced these lessons firsthand. Helping my son develop a consistent study routine showed me how routines, efforts, and positive feedback can build confidence over time. Planning the intentional date nights with my husband reminded me that relationships grow stronger when we make them a priority and invest in them consistently. These experiences have made me a better parent, a better wife, and hopefully a better student engagement coach. And most importantly, they've given me practical strategies that I can use every day to support not only my family, but also my students. As educators, we have the opportunity to influence much more than just academic achievement. We can help students believe in themselves, discover their strengths, and understand that growth is possible. Sometimes all it takes is that one caring individual, that one caring adult who encourages them to keep trying. Thank you for taking time to watch my presentation. I hope something I shared today encourages you to reflect on your own motivation and inspires you to help others reach their goals through encouragement, meaningful relationships, and purposeful actions.